Hi, it's Jo Painter here again, and welcome to our live training for day 2 of the Reboot Your Career 5-day intensive. And that's what we're all here for today, for day 2. And I hope you've practiced some of the tips we talked about yesterday on speaking up in meetings. Have you thought about what that inner critic is saying to you? And have you used any of the strategies I discussed in the last live training? I hope so. So before we get on with today's training, which is all about communicating with power, I'd just like to refer back to a couple of questions that were in the group. A couple of ladies who were in the group mentioned the fact that they find it very difficult to speak up because they're in a very male environment, sometimes the only female around. And that's certainly something I hear a lot about from my clients. And today I wanted just first of all to share a few tips on how you can speak up when you're in an all-male environment. So, first of all, one of the things to remember is that men tend to communicate for power. They tend to share facts and ping-pong backwards and forwards about the things that they know to demonstrate that they're credible, that they're experts, or that they know about things, because that's how they judge each other. Whereas women tend to communicate more about building a relationship, being collaborative and complementing. So when you're in an all-male environment, I'm not suggesting in any way that you should change your personality, but you can change the way you communicate. Think of facts around reasons. Men talk a lot about facts about football, about cars, that sort of thing, but that doesn't have to be what you find facts on. You could think about facts around your job, the expertise you've got, and just try communicating in that way, and you might find that you're being heard more. The second thing about working in an all-male environment is men tend to very much talk about what they've achieved and the successes. They'll quite often mention to bosses what they'd like to do in the future, projects they've been interested in, or things that they've been doing. So sharing your success as well is very important. But you might not feel comfortable just grabbing your boss as he walks past for a coffee, or just coming up in a meeting with some of your successes. If that doesn't feel comfortable, then why not try booking in formal sort of meetings where you can tell him about what you'd like to do in the future and what you've been achieving. Another one is about avoiding becoming the tea lady. So the stereotypes of women in the workplace make it quite difficult, as some of these people were saying within the group, for you to be heard and seen and respected. And sometimes, as a result, what you're saying doesn't get the attention that it deserves or isn't correctly heard by people. So in those situations, there can be stereotyping around, I think, would you get us some tea over there? Would you do this bit of admin? Would you organise a Christmas party? All of those sorts of things. So avoid being taken into any of those roles. It will bring down your credibility within the team. Another part is that you've got to play to your strengths. You may have strengths that are different to all the men within your team. Strengths around relationship building or collaboration are pretty much what are seen as stereotypically women. And emotional intelligence. And if you have all of those skills, then don't waste them. Play to them. Give feedback on how the team are actually running together. Talk about how you're networking. Use your strengths as a way of being an important part of the business rather than seeing them as a weakness. And finally, get an advocate. Get an advocate or a mentor that will help you in terms of giving you support in meetings, maybe, helping you by talking to some of your bosses, giving you tips and things of how they've got on in the business. So find yourself a mentor. Okay, and it's back now to the subject for today, which is communicating with power. So in the training today, I sent out a number of examples of when we talk with a softer and weaker conversation. So when women talk together, you'll often notice they say things like, would you mind if, is it possible, I don't want to disturb you, all this sort of softer language. And that language is absolutely appropriate in lots of situations. But when you want to be assertive, and when you want to make a request or to make an important point, softening language can dilute the power of that. So some of the things I said to avoid would be using the word just, avoiding putting that in your emails as well as saying it. I just means you're reducing the importance of what you're saying, you're diminishing it. Other ones are would you mind if, or actually, or sorry but, or can I just tell you a little bit about this? They're all ways of in which we speak that undermines and dilutes the power of the message. Other ones are like disclaimers. So if you say something like, oh, this is just off the top of my head, or I haven't thought this one through yet, again, you're covering yourself because you haven't had a chance to think it through, but you're also diminishing the power of what you're saying. So if you really want to come across as confident and communicate with power, be aware of when you're using these types of language. Another couple that tend to be used mainly by women are rushing through things, speaking quickly so you get it all out maybe before you're interrupted. Or another one is up-talking, which is when you say something and at the end of the sentence you raise your voice as if it's a question when it isn't a question. And again, that makes it sound as if you're not quite sure about what you're saying. So the final one then is around a sing-song voice. So I don't know whether you've ever recognised anybody whose voice goes up and down and up and down, and it can be difficult to follow and it loses its power. So there's a whole number of things that you can use to make sure that you communicate with power. So if you're not sure what you do, if you don't recognise yourself necessarily, why not record yourself talking in a meeting or talking to somebody one-to-one and have a look at what are those sorts of softening of your communication that you could change. And once you've done that, just practice getting to the habit of it. Talk it through to yourself on a video or ask somebody else to tell you if you're doing any of those particular habits. Now, they're not the most important thing in the world. I don't want you to get all stressed about having to change them, but they will be a small additional thing to help you sound more confident and hopefully get you heard more. So that's the end of today's training. And if you haven't signed up yet for the 5-day intensive, I'll put the link below. It's not too late. You can still catch up on what we talked about yesterday. And I'd love you to join us. So just go to the link below. If you are with us on the programme, then do comment in the group about how you found today's training and any questions or thoughts you've had, because I can then incorporate that into tomorrow's training as well. It's been lovely to speak to you again. This is Jo Painter of confidencecoachingforwomen.co.uk, and I'm excited to see you again tomorrow. Bye.